Thank you, Denora. I am super excited to kind of show off what we have available in the upcoming release. And I have gone back a little bit too far. But anyways, and so we've been working really hard. Dev's been working really hard. We've had a lot of conversations with Esri and with staff, to see what their needs are, industry trends. And so a couple things that we have really focused on over the past year has been 3D. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about 3D configuration, some of the widgets that we have available, support for subtypes as it relates to the utility network, but just subtypes in general as well. If you aren't a utility, you can still take advantage of that, and then kind of wrap up with some of the new widgets, tools, and functionalities that we have available in the map. So just a high level over of 3D and how it works, and you can utilize it in Cityworks. And so we are using an ArcGIS scene. So as long as you have ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Portal, you can create your scene and be able to bring that in and utilize that in Cityworks, just like you would a web map. And we understand completely that you don't want to do one or the other. So we have the ability now, and we'll show that, of switching between 2D and 3D, based on needs, workflows, and user preference. Being able to interact with that pan, zoom, tilt, kind of glide around like you would in an ArcGIS scene viewer, utilize a majority of the map tools that are available in 3D, plus a couple of added ones. Go through your normal workflow of viewing, creating work activities, and then also being able to use that 3D scene in other locations like a dashboard. So here I opened up a scene, added some buildings, some trees, changed the symbology, did some labeling for some fields for parks. And as you see there, I saved it, and I have up in the top here that web scene. And so I'll copy that, and I will go into admin, GIS services, and I will add this web scene with that scene ID, just like I would say a web map. And we'll go ahead and add that to our services resources here in admin. Then I'll open up my service definitions and go to my existing one for this parks and recreation example, where I have this web map, and actually just add another map service here. So here I have my scene and I have my web map. And we can add more than just this, but just for the example here, we have the two available. And so now, once you do that, then you will have this widget, this service switcher widget here. So here I'm panning around my 2D map. As you can see, I see my assets, have my event layers, just like you normally would. And if we need some 3D perspective, want to start changing that around and get that 3D view, now we can open up and actually switch between that scene. And so here I have my scene. I can pan around just like you would with the 2D, but we can also go ahead and start tilting and viewing to really get that 3D perspective. This is a parks example, but you could use this when, across all your disciplines of your organizations. I can open up my work activities just like I would in 2D and really start to interact and view what we're doing here in 3D, what you can do in 2D. So let's go ahead and look at a couple of the other map tools and how they interact. So I'm not going to show everything here today, but please go ahead and kind of put those in there and look. So I'm going to select these 5 trees here. As you can see, I can select them. They interact just like they would with 2D. You can view the details, create the work orders off of those. Editing. So we'll go ahead and show an example here of editing in 2D or in 3D. So I'll create a tree point here and just click on that. And I have my symbology for all these trees based off of this common name. So I'm going to click the common name, and that's going to change the symbology. And then I have my elevation extruded based on the diameter. So I can change that diameter here to 48 and pan around and zoom around. These are just examples, but you could do different fields based on how that is configured in that web scene. And so you can pan around and see what that tree may look like. You added buildings, other 3D features as well. Bookmarks, same bookmarks you have in 2D, you can utilize here in 3D. So I have a bookmark here to City Hall. So if you're doing presentations or you're needing to see different areas, you can go ahead and view those as well. So that's just a couple of examples, but the Create Activity tool, Locate, Legend, Redline, all these other widgets are works in 3D just like they would in 2D. A new widget that is available in 3D is going to be the daylight widget. So here I've added a water tank from Google SketchUp, added it to Pro to my scene, to get an idea of what a new water tank might look in this location. I got the 3D measurement there to show that it is roughly 100 feet. And now I want to see in my area, what the shadow analysis is going to look like for this tank, if this is where we place that. So I can kind of do that manually here, or I can hit the play button, for that day, being able to kind of look around, pan around and see, what time of the day, what the shadow is going to look like, who can see that, and if it's going to affect anybody throughout the day. So you could go there, and that's just for the current date for the video, but we could go ahead and change that date below as well and really be able to show, how this example for a water tank would affect user or customers, citizens in this area. And so here I'm just panning around, and this is some different data. So what we had initially showed was mostly vector data. So this is a 3D texture mesh from partner Nearmap, and this is for an entire city. And so that can be easily added, stored in your organization. This is stored in ArcGIS Online, and added to a scene, added here in the Cityworks. And then on top of that, you could add any of your vector data that you wanted to do, say water mains, or different assets, streets, sidewalks, and being able to really get that view and being able to really start to see and utilize like big, massive pieces of data, very quickly and share those out to the different divisions, different departments, in your organization. And then the last example, I want to quickly show is when we're talking about 3D, we're getting a lot of feedback about vertical assets. So here, this is our Trimble Westminster office in Colorado. And it is brought in here in 3D. It is from a BIM file, so you can see the BIM shell on the outside, but it's also floor aware, and so it interacts with the floor filter widget. So in Respond 3.4, we added, out of the box, the floor filter widget that will interact with floor aware data. So it's 2D and 3D. So for anybody that has indoors or looking at indoors, you can see how we're zooming in and actually interacting with the tool on the right here. And we'll change the building, zoom in, being able to get really good detail, for your vertical assets as you look at, maybe taking these from that 2D related type of asset structure and really start to make that vertical jump into the 3D. So let me go back one, sorry. So next item we're going to talk about is subtypes. So for people that don't know what subtypes are, they're just a set of features that share the same attribute, and they have been around for a long time, but they have kind of make this really big comeback with the utility network as far as asset groups and asset types. And so for an example of a street subtype, could be a street subtype with one feature where you may have residential, arterial, and highways. UN example would be a water line feature that may have, your service lines, your main lines, as far as the subtypes, and they could even go in further with like your water main lines may have transmission and distribution lines. And so there's a lot of benefits for organizations to start to use subtypes. So better data integrity, since you are providing other fields with correct attribute information, default values, you will get less issues, mistakes, so better QA/QC. Performance, especially when you're utilizing web maps and pulling in these web services, you may just have that one feature service that you're utilizing versus maybe 5 or 6 that you're having to call back at the server all the time. And then easy use for end users. So, it's that one feature, turn it on and off, see that instead of maybe having a huge map with 20 or 30 services, you may be able to slim that down to 5 or 6. So in admin, we now have this new, under the GIS, import GIS service assets, that's going to allow you to work with your subtypes and your domains. So here I have a water main map or a UN map service. I'm going to choose my water lines and I'll click load subtypes. And this is going to load all the subtypes that are available for this asset. We'll pick our domains. And for the example here, I'll click on my services. And as you can see, as that service subtype there. And then if I want to go further, I can go ahead and click on my asset type, change my residential service. So it is going to allow you to get really granular with how you want to manage your assets and your work activities that are associated with that asset. So here I just have, just down to that asset group, asset type. But if you wanted to do diameter, or you wanted to use your material, you could do this here as well. So, and the really good part about this is it's using your subtypes, it's using your domains. So here I have this, we'll go in here and look at that. Here's that commercial, residential. So it is going to be configured, set up your UIDs, display fields here. Actually look into our service layers and you can get an idea of what that looks like. So here's my service and my asset type and my asset groups. That has now been added in admin 2.0. So you can really get a good idea and start to get really granular, if you want to. So we'll open this up, and this is just an example here of some water UN data. And we'll look at the legend, and we'll scroll down really quickly. But as you can see, I just have a couple of actual feature services in there, and one is the water lines one. And so I'll select this area, and for an end user, it is going to go ahead and select everything. But on the left here, it will break that out into those asset groups and types that we configured. So you can see I have my commercial services that were configured, and now I also have my 20 residential services. So I had selected, more than just the services, but it is just going to show me what is configured, and you can configure that for everything. So that was just the example of showing like, hey, this is how you can configure subtypes and start utilizing those, and a lot of the value that you're going to see on the GIS and the Cityworks side. In the next version, or in Respond 4.0, in the editor tool, we now include editor snapping. So here I will turn my snapping on my water mains and my service lines. And so if we wanted to add a service line with a hydrant, I can go in here, make sure that that data is snapped, and we'll add a service line, could add the asset identifiers, update the attributions there as well. And then we'll add a hydrant onto this service line here. And as you can see, it is snapped. So to really help with the connectivity, quality of your GIS data, as you start allowing users, if you're not already, to edit the data, this is just that extra step to make sure that your data quality continues to be up to where it needs to be. We have also added project information onto the create activity through the map. So a user could select, for this example, water mains that need to be repaired as part of a capital project. So we have these water mains here selected. You can put in and change that to a repair. or replace, and then choose the project that you want to associate with those assets. And so here we've created all these work orders. Now we're going to go over to OpX and open up that project. So we have that CIP project that we associated those work activities to. We can go ahead and open that up, and we see the work orders associated with those. We also see the assets that we selected there as well. And if we have some of the costing information, configured, estimated cost, we can see all that rolled in as one as well. So it really streamlines, those projects and that workflow. A few other updates to respond as well. Coordinate conversion tool from 3x to 4x has several options, more options, different coordinates types, but you can also copy and paste and actually, just paste those into and input the coordinates and zoom to those. Split line tool is available in Respond 4.0. And then lastly, grouping event layers. So in 3.4, if you check the box for clustering, your clustered event layers. Now, if you check the box for grouping event layers, they will be grouped in Respond. As you can see, work order, inspections, service requests, but we also have the options now to actually make those visible at that level. So in 3x, you could just turn them on one at a time. If you had, say, 20 work order event layers, you could turn those all on and off at one time. So thank you. I know it's a lot, but we're really excited, to see what everybody does, with a lot of this new functionality, coming up that's released in 15.8 and, the releases to come.